What is going on, everybody? Kevin Calhoun here. Welcome to the Calhoun Show. I am fired up. This is going to be a little bit of a scattered podcast because as I sit down here on a Wednesday evening at 7:30, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Washington Capitals are getting ready for Game 4. The first game of this series that will not start with Sidney Crosby. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the hit from Niskanen, the slash from Ovechkin, and the subsequent loss of 87 for the team in black and gold. We have the NBA playoffs going on. Isaiah Thomas, unreal performance in Game 2. The Cavaliers and the Raptors are in the midst of their Game 2 right now. Golden State, who I think, or at least I said going into the series, would not lose a game or win a game by less than 10 points. They barely squeaked that out. Get a 12-point win in game number 1. I am coming off of weekend number 1 at my new job that I told you guys about last week, and I will recap it for you. It was an absolute blast. It was the best weekend in a long time, and we'll talk all about it. There's a lot of stuff to do. We have emails from you guys. We have a ton of topics and a throwback clip from last year at request. A few people have asked me to bring something back, and I will simply preview it by telling you that it has something to do with the fact that the Kentucky Derby is taking place this weekend. So we'll have a throwback clip from a podcast way gone by here on the Calhoun Show. That'll close us out. But as always, we start the show the same way. We're going to start with Patty's music and then an email from Mr. Dixon that I forgot about last week. So we have a lot of stuff. Let's get this thing started, shall we? This is the Calhoun Show. You can follow the Calhoun Show on Twitter at Calhoun Show and email the show calhounshow@gmail.com. Like the show on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube where all the episodes go up in their entirety every week. And if you are listening to us on a mobile device, then you're listening to us through iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. If you're new to the podcast and you haven't yet, go over to iTunes for me and leave a nice little 5-star rating and a nice review. It helps push the show to more eyeballs and more eardrums, I suppose. The voicemail line for the show is 860-740-2119. So we start with an email because I forgot it last week and it's totally my bad. So 2 weeks ago, if you remember back, I was talking about Odell Beckham and I was talking about how he missed a couple of events, and I basically gave a spiel I've given before, which is that, yeah, he's a dope, but he's a kid, and he's got to figure these things out. But if you want to hold him to a high standard, you can. I'm just personally not going to. So our good buddy, the guy who wrote that song that you just heard, and he's been on the podcast before, he's one of my best friends in the world, Patty Dixon, sent me an email. And here's what he said. He said, congrats on the new job, so thank you. On last week's podcast, you made a statement that legitimately made me angry if I could be 100% honest with you. Your statement was in relation to Odell Beckham Jr. showing up late for a children's benefit because he was at Coachella. True story. You said something along the lines of, he's 24 years old, he's still just a kid, guys, relax. He should be given more leeway. I could not disagree with what you said. You're not alone. Beckham Jr. gets paid to do these things, maybe not the benefits and fundraisers themselves, but he gets paid to be in a position that he's in, a superstar, an athlete, and a role model. I don't care how fucking old you are, this job title requires responsibility. He's not some random 20-something-year-old that's working at Starbucks and living at his parents' house. He's a wide receiver for the New York Giants, and he needs to act like it regardless of age. I know you've never been a big fan of the whole PR aspect of sports athletes, but I feel that it's important because at the end of the day, they're getting paid for more than just throwing the ball or shooting the puck or whatever. At least that's how I feel. Love you, buddy. Keep doing good things, Patty. All right, first off, awesome email, and it's a response that I would expect, and it's not necessarily wrong, in my opinion. But that's just what I have, which is an opinion. And Patty alluded to two things that I want to talk about. The first one is the role model thing, where he says, but he gets paid to be in the position that he's in, a superstar, an athlete, and a role model. And then the second part was, I know you've never been a big fan of the whole PR aspect of sports athletes, but I feel that it's important because at the end of the day, they're getting paid. All of that is correct, including my assessment of how we are supposed to view athletes. Athletes in and of themselves are role models if you want them to be, but it's not their responsibility. Odell Beckham's job is to catch a football. If you believe that his job goes beyond that because he's put into the spotlight and he is in view of kids or he's in view of people that he can have an effect on, you can feel that way. My feeling has always been that there are people in the world that can be great role models, and there are people in the world that you can direct either kids or whoever towards if people are looking for something like that. It's not impossible for that person to be an athlete. It's not. There's a lot of examples of really, really great people that also were athletes. There's a lot of examples of really, really great people that were athletes that were quiet, that weren't necessarily role models, but only because they didn't seek the spotlight. There are people that are athletes that are not role models, and they should not be relied upon to be role models. Odell Beckham might be one of those people. He's also 24 years old. He's not really a grown-up person yet. If we want to act like he is, that's fine. How does emotional maturity work when at 21 you're making a catch, or 22, you're making a catch that Chris Collinsworth is calling on national TV? That's the greatest catch I've ever seen. I don't know what his emotional maturity level is, but I know me at 27, I probably couldn't handle that much, that many eyeballs on me that quickly. I'm trying to do that with this, but I'm easing in. Probably slower than I'd like, but easing in. That said, Beckham, he messed up. He should have been at the event. I said that 2 weeks ago. He should have been at the event on time. There's no excuse not to be. He is for sure being paid to be at events like this. To bolster Patty's case, he wasn't sure, it seemed. But yeah, he's 100% getting paid to be at fundraisers and things like that, unless it's something that was his idea. But based on anything I read, he was being paid to be at these things. And I know he missed a function earlier this offseason that he was paid to attend. Listen, that is a character issue that can be looked at. It can be scrutinized. And you can say, wow, that guy's got to get his stuff together. But he's got to get his stuff together just to be a mature adult. He doesn't need to get his stuff together because you want him to be a role model. It's not in his job description. As much as everybody tries to put role model in an athlete's job description, it's never there. It's not in the contract. It's an expectation that people can place on an athlete or a musician or an actor. You can place those things on them if you choose to, but it is not their job to carry it. Our job is to find the people that we think are role models and follow them. Our job isn't to force people into that role if it's not something that they're cut out for or ready for yet. And that's my argument about somebody that's 24. If there was a 37-year-old receiver in the NFL who wasn't showing up for events and stuff, I would say, first off, good for him having that bad a character and lasting until he's 37. But clearly this is a guy who's just not going to do those things. He never learned it. He never figured it out. He didn't care to, he didn't want to, or he completely tried to go the opposite way. But at 24, we don't have all that information. We just don't have it. And if the expectation is that somebody's going to be a role model and they don't live up to that expectation, then maybe it's time to look for somebody different instead of trying to change a 24-year-old kid who has had the world at his fingertips probably before he was ready for it. And I don't know. Maybe that's a cop-out. Maybe that's building a straw man argument to defend somebody's actions. I don't think it is. I'm not trying to defend the actions. At 24, you should be smart enough to go to things like that. But it's not up to us. And it's certainly not up to us to decide what kind of person he wants to be. That's up to him. And if he decides to be a bad person, maybe it'll affect his NFL career and maybe it won't, but nobody has to like him. As a Giants fan, I like him. And as a Giants fan, if he scores 16 touchdowns this year and has 1,700 yards, I mean, the last thing in my mind is going to be the fact that he didn't show up to a children's benefit. Still doesn't mean that I'm going to hope he's a role model at the end of those 1,700 yards. That's how I feel about it. So, as I said, Penguins Capitals on right now. They're about 2.5 minutes into the first period. And the Penguins are playing without one Sidney Crosby. If you missed it, here's what happened. Crosby, early on in Game 3, was driving the net. He got pretty nastily slashed by Alexander Ovechkin, and he buckled down, went sliding, gliding in a crouch toward Matt Niskanen, and Matt Niskanen's hand, forearm, stick, whatever it was, made some pretty nasty contact with Sidney Crosby's head. So my gut reaction was that was a dirty play. And I talked about the fact that it was a dirty play with people for a couple of days over the last few. And I felt that way because Niskanen had an opportunity, I thought, to change his angle. And I still believe he did. That said, I've never played hockey before. And in situations like this, I tend to rely a little bit upon the wisdom of others, especially people that know more about what I'm talking about. So I was listening to Merrick versus Wyshynski, which I've mentioned to you guys before. It's my favorite hockey podcast. I learn a lot from those guys. I've been watching hockey for about 10 years now of my 27 on this earth. So I am very new. There are a lot of names I don't know from the 90s and early 2000s that normal hockey fans all know. I'm learning. I'm gaining on it, and I know a lot to this point, but here's one thing I've never done. I've never played hockey before. I played street hockey or roller hockey or whatever the hell you call it, where you run around. We had an intramural team in college with a couple of the people that have been mentioned on this podcast before. Patty included, I believe, played with us. Unless my memory's terrible, there was some drinking going on senior year. So whether or not Niskanen could have changed his angle, whatever, I've softened on this. It's a high-speed play. It's unfortunate. But if you're going to sit down and really analyze the actions of a Capitals player in that play, I think the look needs to go to Alexander Ovechkin first for the slash. It changed Crosby's angle. It changed what he was doing. It was hard. It was a hard slash to try to prevent a goal. And, you can talk about the term hockey play, which Jeff and Greg were really smartly calling pejorative at this point. But it seemed like a hockey play now. The more I hear about it, the more I listen to former players or analysts or people that know the game. And it's backed up. The NHL Players Association, the NHL, the Player Safety Board, everybody was talking about this and looking at it. Player Safety did not issue a suspension. Niskanen's playing in this game tonight that's on right now. And, we'll see what happens. But it was an unfortunate play. It really was. And I offered that take on it because it's mine, but also because I wanted to lead into another really good email that we got from one of our favorite people, the show's quote unquote best friend. Sarah sent us an email. The NHL has a serious problem with head injuries, and the league has an inability to protect its players, in my opinion. An extreme set of rules is needed to fix this. Here's my proposal. Contact to the head of an opponent, 4-game suspension. Contact to the head of an opponent and a minor, 8 games. Contact to the head of an opponent and a major is a 16-game suspension. A second offense will result in the same season. Second offense in the same season is 1.5 times the original. A third offense is twice this original. For incidental contact, a fourth is 3 times 12 games. And for anything resulting in a penalty is the remainder of a season with a minimum of the original suspension being served via carryover to the next season if necessary. Now, my first thought when I heard that was, that seems extreme. And then I kept reading and Sarah wrote, extreme? Absolutely. However, these same exact players head to the Olympics and play the same game without any of these shenanigans. I think a large reason for that is that some of the zero tolerance rules, as an unrelated aside, I also think bigger ice helps and should be considered. That's true. I think a lot of people feel that way in the hockey community. By the way, goal, Pittsburgh Penguins 1-0 in Game 4. Love that. I think that the big ice thing is absolutely true. And I bet you if you ask the NHL an internal poll without revealing who said what, I think the majority would agree that bigger ice would probably be better. but you can't reformat 30 arenas. So that's the problem. It's never going to happen. When guys start losing 1/10 of their income or 1/5 of their income, will they stop taking chances? Happy side effect of this would be that scoring would increase and the game would be all around much more fun to watch. In 5 years, when this stuff has been chased from the game, then you go ahead and cut the suspensions in half. You will not find guys taking the same risk they do now with such severe and immediate consequences right now. It is 1,000% worth risking any supplemental discipline to play recklessly, cheaply, or dirtily against talented players. The NHL needs to make it so that it is not worth it, both for the player, hey, I lost all my income, shit, and the organization to take risks that endanger players. Why can these same players that play excellent, fun hockey at the Olympics and then turn around and play such shenanigan-fueled hockey in the NHL? And then she sent a small little PS here. Serious question. Is Ovechkin swinging his stick anywhere near Sid's head if he would be suspended for the remainder of the series once the NHL saw that on tape? In my opinion, he wouldn't. He is more than willing to risk a 50-50 shot at a minor, but he's going to take the same risk with massively inflated consequences. I don't think so. That's my line of thinking. You need to make it so that it is not even something worth risking for the player. The idea of that is something I agree 100% with, that if you incentivize players or do the opposite of that for making plays like this, it will go away. The problem with those hefty suspensions is it'll never be agreed upon. The NHL and the NHLPA can't get through a negotiation without a lockout as it is. I think those are extreme. And I think that incidental contact to the head is something that can't be suspended. And that's my biggest problem with Sarah's email. And it just goes back, not necessarily to the Niskanen play, but to any other play. If you have a rule where contact to the head is 4 games and any number of, how many plays in a game is there contact to the head? And when do you start scrutinizing and when do you decide what's a graze and what's contact and what's a hit? I don't know how all that works. Maybe there's answers. Maybe there's ways to do it. But to me, it seems like the NHL just needs to not be afraid to use the rules they have now. And in all honesty, I think it starts, by the way, a beautiful goal by Patrick Hornquist. Now I finally get to see the replay. I think it starts and ends with the players having a conscious thought on the ice of what comes next if I do this. And that's Sarah's point. And I agree with it completely. I don't know how you make them make that distinction. I really don't. There might be a way to do it, but I don't know what it is. All right, let's wrap up hockey, and then we'll go into the NBA. So Edmonton took a 2-0 series lead in Anaheim. Anaheim slowed the game down, beat them up a little bit in Game 3. Won that one 6-3. By the time you guys are hearing this, Game 4 will be over, so I might look like an idiot here. I thought after Game 3 ended that series looks over to me. I think Anaheim wins 4 of the next 5 or outright wins it in 6 and loses 2-0 or goes down 2-0 and then wins the series 4-2. The problem with that is while I think Edmonton's fundamentally flawed and while I think Anaheim has figured out how to beat them, Edmonton has so much speed and talent that they can turn any game on its head and put up 5. So it's completely possible that Edmonton holds off and moves into the conference final and plays what looks like it's going to be Nashville, which would be an amazing Western Conference final. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Anaheim figured them out and they're going to grind this thing to a halt over the next 3 or 4 games with the Edmonton Oilers. I mentioned Nashville and St. Louis. Nashville up 3-1. The best description I've seen of St. Louis was that this is from @AnthraxJones on Twitter. They are a movie henchman. They did their job. They got rid of the Wild in the first round. Now it's time to throw them off a rooftop. So that's a beautiful description. We can move on from St. Louis. Let's keep Nashville around. And then finally on the Eastern side, Ottawa takes a 2-0 series lead. New York bounces back after a horrendous Game 2 loss. They bounce back and take Game 3 at home. I still like the Rangers in that series. The best player on the ice in that series is Henrik Lundqvist. If it's not Carlson, it's Lundqvist. So I always take the goaltender if that's the big advantage. So that's where I'm thinking about that. All right, let's move into basketball, and then I got some baseball on-field host stories for you guys. So let's keep the podcast going. This is the Calhoun Show.
The Calhoun Show.
All right. After pretending to not be completely enthralled by the Penguins and Capitals game, I'm ready to continue the podcast. Still 1-0 here in the first period. There's about 3.5, 4 minutes left. This has been a blast. I'm going to be a wreck for the rest of the night watching this game. So let's continue the show here as we transition into the NBA. And the NBA's second round to me is not nearly as interesting as the NHL second round, only because I don't think Golden State and Cleveland have a chance to lose. It looks like Houston is going to run all over San Antonio. Dan Condi and I were talking the other day. We were getting some stuff done here in the studio, and we were talking about the Rockets and the Spurs. And I told him that I thought the Rockets would not only win the series, but that it would not get past 6 games. And I feel really confident. I feel really confident with that. I know Houston shot the lights out of the gym in the first half, but I don't think San Antonio can keep up. And LaMarcus Aldridge is a corpse right now. And if he's not going to contribute 18 and 12, then they don't have a chance. They don't have a chance. Obviously, you guys know how I feel about Golden State. I feel the same way about the Cavaliers. As it stands right now in game 2, the Cavaliers are up, looks like 16 or 14 at the half. So they're looking pretty good there. And then finally, Boston and Washington. Now, I picked Washington in 7 in this series. I still feel okay about that. Washington pushed the Celtics to the limit at the TD Bank North Garden Monument Arena, whatever the hell that thing's called. They looked good. They didn't finish, but now they get to go home to Washington. Hopefully they can take 2. If they don't, this is going to be a tough one, but I still like Washington there. Now, as promised, I am going to tell you guys about a cool experience I had this past weekend. So if you missed last week's episode of the podcast, I got a job, a real one, doing something where I hold a microphone. And this past weekend, I got my first chance to do it, to do my new job, which was it was a blast. So I'm the on-field host for the Bridgeport Bluefish, and it's an independent league baseball team here in Connecticut. My first game was Friday night, and it was an absolute blast. We were all over the place. There's middle of the first, end of the first, middle second, end second, middle third, end third. Like, we have something for almost all of those. I think the bottom of the 5th is the half inning off, but it's a blast. It's a ton of running around. My legs were killing me on Sunday and Monday as the 3-game homestand came to a close. I wasn't ready for all of those steps up and down, running from section to section. But I got to tell you, after a few years of this being the only microphone I've been talking into, I found myself on Friday night, or on Friday during the day, and then Saturday and then Sunday night, found myself on top of a dugout in a baseball stadium with a lot of people around me. And I was holding the microphone and talking to them and getting them pumped up and doing fun promotions and doing games with the kids, whether it's in the stands or out on the field or throwing tennis balls or racing the mascot from first to third during the middle of the 4th or whatever it is. It was an absolute blast, and I got to tell you guys, if you're ever around, it's a really fun experience. It's a fun place to see a baseball game, and I would love to see some people come out to a Bluefish game and say hi to me if you want to. But the Bluefish are they're great. So there are 2 on-field hosts for the Bluefish this year. I'm working somewhere between 40 and 50 games. The other host is doing between 15 and 25. So I'm doing most of the games this year. But if you are interested and you want to go see a baseball game and see what I look like and sound like in person, then that's something that you could do. Just reach out and I'll tell you if I'm working or not. And you can come see a nice little baseball game. So it was an absolute blast. I can't wait for the next 4 or 5 months of doing this. And yeah, it's a pretty surreal thing to finally have a job where they're paying you to do something that you've been excited about doing for 5 years. So it was a really, really, overall, it was a great weekend. Let's do a little throwback Calhoun show. This was requested by a few people, and as the Kentucky Derby approaches, Here is an old clip from the Calhoun Show. I think it needs a little setup. Maybe not. The setup being that some horse, I don't even care which one it was. It was the one that won the Triple Crown, was up for Athlete of the Year in Sports Illustrated, and I did not like that one bit. So this is probably a year and a half ago from the Calhoun Show gone by. Here you go.
The Calhoun Show.
Unbelievable. Hasn't happened in a very long time. And it's great that it did. American Pharoah, however, is a horse. And a horse is, not a person. American Pharoah, in a poll online, received 50% of all votes to be the SI Sports Person of the Year. If you cut away the names and everything about it, what we're really saying is that horse right there is the best person. What the fuck are we talking about here? It's a horse. I think tonight, Wednesday night, they have the ceremony for this. What if the horse won? Does he give a speech? Does a horse know it's racing something? Put the horse in the little paddock there, but don't put the little short guy on top of him. You know what's going to happen when they open the door? He's going to stand there. Oh, look at the other horses going. How come they got people? Oh, wait, the horse wouldn't think that, because horses are dumb. It's a horse. It doesn't know it won the Triple Crown. It's pretty sure it can run fast. Oh, God. It's just... This has been just chewing away at me. And, yeah, maybe you're sitting there going, hey, easy, freak. Maybe take this a little less seriously. Yeah, you're right. I get a little too bent out of shape over things that don't really matter. But it's a horse! It's not a human being. It can't be Person of the Year. If you want to tell me that the jockey and the trainer and the owner, because the horse owner always has to be mentioned for whatever reason, if those three guys combined with the horse are the sports people and horse of the year, then I will question why you have that award, but be fine with you giving it to them.
The Calhoun Show.
I have some issues. I really do. I hadn't listened to that since I cut it after the episode. I still feel that way. By the way, this mic sounds so much nicer than that old one did. So I guess there's been 2 microphones in my life. Serves me right for saying that 5 minutes ago. But yeah, I still feel the same way. I mean, the Kentucky Derby is one of those things that I'll watch it if I remember. Dan and I have a little side bet going on. There's a hint. There's a tease. Dan and I have a little thing going on with the Kentucky Derby. And if you want my winners, and there is a reason I have these, and someday if you remind me, I'll explain why. But here's my top 3. Take it to wherever you bet on horses, and literally give your money away because I know nothing about horse racing. I have Practical Joke coming in 3rd, Classic Empire coming in 2nd, and Always Dreaming coming in 1st. That is my 3 winners, or top 3, or set of whatever. I don't know. There's terms for this. I don't care what it is. But yeah, there you go. But fuck horses. That's actually the name of that track in my track list. It says fuck horses. I just searched horse and there it was. So I must have been still angry about it when I saved the file that night. I want to talk really quickly before we wrap up here on the Calhoun Show about the idiotic world of unwritten rules in sports. We have seen over the last 2 weeks or so a thing playing out between the Baltimore Orioles and the Boston Red Sox. Manny Machado slides hard into second base. Pedroia gets hurt. Red Sox throw behind Machado, hit him in the head, graze his helmet, I guess. the Orioles throw at Mookie Betts. Chris Sale throws behind Machado. They've thrown at Machado a bunch of times now. And Major League Baseball is stepping in and saying Rob Manfred, I guess, had a conference call. Joe Torre was in on it. And they said, knock it off. You guys need to figure this out. We don't want any more of this. There will be sanctions if it continues. Now, Buck Showalter, John Farrell, I don't know how much stock they're going to put into that. Those two teams are playing right now, so I don't know if anything's happened. I've got the Penguins and the Cavaliers on back and forth here, so I haven't had any baseball on tonight. But unwritten rules in baseball are stupid. Unwritten rules in most sports are stupid. If it's an unwritten rule, then feel free to ignore it, honestly. That's how I feel about it. If you really have that much superstition involved, this guy did this, now there's retribution coming. I get that. You're going to police yourselves. That's okay. The Red Sox look silly here. Stop throwing at him. It was a slide, and the guy who got slid into didn't seem to have an issue. In fact, when the first guy from the Red Sox, Matt Barnes, threw at Machado's head, Machado's looking in the dugout and talking to Pedroia saying, really at my head? And Pedroia's mouthing back to him. You can read his lips. He's telling him that that's not me. That's them. That's not me. That's them. So Pedroia himself wasn't really on board with throwing at Machado once, never mind all of the subsequent times since then in the last 2 weeks. So I don't like to get caught up in these things, but it's one of the bigger stories happening in sports right now. So I did want to give it a quick mention. Another thing that happened this past week, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to be retiring from NASCAR. I grew up a huge NASCAR fan, and I don't pay much attention to it anymore. It's one of those sports that I do have on the drop-down menu on my whatever app I use for sports, but I don't check it too often, and I certainly don't watch too many races. I would love to see Junior win a title. It seems unlikely. I did look at the standings. He's in 15th place right now. I don't know what the new rules do. I know in the rules of the last couple of years, the top 10 drivers make it into the chase at the end of the year. I don't know if that's how it still works, but hopefully Junior can salvage something here and maybe make a run at a championship, because that would be pretty cool. He's been the face of NASCAR for a long time. And if we're all lucky, he's going to end up in the booth, and we're going to have Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Jr. In the same broadcast booth for a long time. That's not my original thought. I think Grant had that. I think a few people pointed that out. Maybe Grant didn't, and now he's smiling that I just gave him credit. But but anyway, yeah, I hope Junior goes the announcer route and we can listen to him, because he's entertaining, he's funny, and he's got a lot of knowledge. So congrats to him on a great career, and hopefully he can finish strong. Obviously, you guys have probably noticed that this podcast is well underway, and we have not talked about the NFL draft. The reason for that is the NFL draft now happened a week ago, and you guys have been inundated with analysis and talk and hot takes and this and that about the NFL draft. My one stance on this is you can analyze who did what. Did the Bears do something stupid? Mike Glennon feels cheated on. Houston, are they a Super Bowl threat, or are they just mortgaging their future for nothing? The Raiders take Conley, the cornerback from Ohio State, who's facing rape allegations, who took a lie detector test. The story originally was nothing happened. Now it was consensual. Is that one of the biggest draft snafus of all time? And will it turn out to be that, or will it turn out to be nothing? The Browns, once again, they pass on quarterbacks, and is this a Carson Wentz situation? Is this a Ben Roethlisberger situation, or any other quarterback that they haven't taken in the last 15 years? Or did they finally do the right thing where they're starting to acquire real blue chip talent? Blue chip, excuse me. I don't know if that's what I said. Blue chip talent players. And building an actual roster, and then getting the quarterback when the opportunity really presents itself that that's their guy. If they weren't sold on Trubisky, if they weren't sold on Mahomes, if they weren't sold on Watson, then maybe they're doing the right thing. And taking the flyer on Kaiser, who has been described as possibly the best athlete and the most natural quarterback of the group. Just a lot of concerns otherwise about him. Maybe the Browns are doing the right thing. But overwhelmingly, I just thought that the draft itself happened. We all have heard so much about all of it. A couple things I just want to mention. if you're not familiar with James Conner's story, I'm lucky enough to have spent 4 years in Pittsburgh. So most of the interactions I have personally with people online is from college and since then. And a lot of that comes through Pittsburgh. So I get to see a lot of these things about the University of Pittsburgh football and the Steelers themselves. So James Conner is a wonderful story. And if you aren't familiar with it, please go read about it, listen to him talk, and understand what he's gone through. And the fact that he got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers it was the coolest moment of the draft for me. I really enjoyed it, and I can't recommend it enough if you get a chance to go check it out. So that is it for us tonight on the Calhoun Show. I'm going to go watch more Penguins hockey. You guys enjoy a great weekend. If you're into horse racing, cool. Good for you. I hope it's a blast. And if you bet on horses, then good luck winning money on said horses who, if they have a mental breakdown before the race, you lose. So have fun. That'd be great. That'll be fun for you. So that's it. We're done. I'm going to stop making fun of horses. I'm going to watch hockey, watch basketball, and talk to you guys next week. More baseball games this weekend. More work. Love it. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.
Thank you for listening to The Calhoun Show. Join the conversation by following the show on Twitter @Calhoun Show and emailing the show at calhounshow@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe and download for free on iTunes. Want to hear yourself on the show? Leave us a voicemail by calling 860-740-2119.